More rioting in Portland as Antifa barricaded doors to police buildings and courthouses that taxpayers built and then set the structures on fire. Or as the media describes it, nothing special. Yeah, if you're looking for this on the news, good luck. It's tucked away behind slabs of Mary Trump's bitter psychoanalysis. But when the media is forced to cover it, they say the same thing. The response to riots is actually worse than the riots themselves. At CNN, apologists for rioting call right-wing coverage of it a gross exaggeration.
There are real problems in Portland, but it is made up on Fox News like it's this raging fire out of control, and that is a gross exaggeration. It just is. It's a gross exaggeration.
That should be the name of his show. But it's nothing new. Remember CNN mocking the rise in violent crime?
Democratic cities are in chaos right now. Is this what you want from Joe Biden? And they're going to take your country away, and they're taking down the statues. And
crime is rising as they defund police.
Oh, my gosh, it's so bad. And they're defunding police. It's like...
Wow. Beavis and Butthead. I guess to an idiot that's funny. But remember, it's the crime that they mock that brings the police in to stop it, which increases the chances for encounters that can go wrong. But dismissing real violence in favor of mocking the concern for it saves them from examining their own role in protecting the mob and stoking violence. Oh, yes, I don't condone violence, they plea, unless I agree with the violence.
And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful. But I argue to you tonight, all punches are not equal morally. In the eyes of the law, yes, fighting hate is right. And in a clash between hate and those who oppose it are on the side of right.
So why this pathetic appeasement? Well, they're petty. If they were to defend law and order, the police, or even you, the citizen, that puts them on the same side as Trump. They'd rather jump into bed with violent scum. CNN bends over backwards to hide the crime behind this media criticism, claiming that covering the violence is meant to smear a movement and therefore condemning mayhem has to be racist. No, we say, we're just looking at what's happening to a country that we dearly love, and we are worried sick about it. We're actually scared. But go on and laugh, and then call 911 when this hell comes to your house. So, I want to play this tape from the Portland Police Union boss, Daryl Turner, Juan, and then I want to get your reaction. Let's go.
Our elected officials have condoned the destruction and chaos of our city. They have placed their political agendas ahead of the safety of all of us and the welfare of the community. This must stop.
So, Juan, what do you think local officials need to be doing now?
Well, I mean, local officials need to deal with local problems, Greg. That's the point here. I mean, I want to talk to you about two videos. I don't know if we have them, but one video is of Chris David, who is a veteran of the Navy. He appears before these unidentified federal groups, and he's wearing a Navy T-shirt. He's got a backpack on his back that says Navy. He just wants to talk, and they begin beating and gassing the man. How about a second video? This one of another man, Mark Pettibone. He's in the video walking away when an unmarked car shows up, grabs him, men in camouflage, again, grab him, throw him in an unmarked car, and he later says they just released him. So he's never charged with anything. He doesn't know who they were or what happened. So incidents like those are why you have the Oregon Attorney General suing Homeland Security. It's why the ACLU is filing lawsuits. In these suits, they argue that local matters should be handled by local authorities. And the local authorities, the mayor, the governor, both senators, want Trump's troops off the street. What they say is, here's Mayor Ted Wheeler. He says the feds are provoking violence, escalating the vandalism. Governor Kate Brown said this is political theater staged by Trump to divide the country and create a campaign issue in which Trump can play law and order hero. But it's an abuse of federal power, and oftentimes I hear conservatives say, hey, what about states' rights? Well, nothing this time. So I would just ask everyone, what are tactical units from Border Patrol and Immigration's Customs doing in the streets of Portland, Oregon? That's an abuse of power.
Because anarchy means no one is safe, and they're trying to preserve order. That's what it's there for. Emily, in Seattle, 12 cops were injured. There were more riots and looting. Of course, if we try to stop that, we're invading a local problem, according to Juan, right?
Well, I disagree. Juan, respectfully, what we are seeing on the streets, those are federal crimes. Throwing explosives falls under Title 18. That is a federal crime and deserves a federal response because the local leadership is not doing anything and they are not allowing that local law enforcement to protect its citizens. The full-out attack on law enforcement and cities, that footage we are looking at, that is undeniable. And for these feckless, invertebrate governors and mayors to try to pivot to the national government and saying that it's some type of federal overreach when they are failing their communities is absolutely ludicrous. We are watching a war on the streets. We are watching officers being killed. And I am one of those Seattle residents who is watching this city being destroyed alongside livelihoods while Mayor Durkin and Mayor Wheeler play footsie with the mainstream media or their insular socialist merry band of pilgrims because they just want to get reelected or answer to their small electoral. I have to point out that regardless how you feel about this president or this administration, we need help. These cities are being overrun by organized anarchists, while homeless and drug addicts are allowed to fester in these, quote, safe cities. All of the politicization needs to be put aside because we need help, and it is not coming from local leadership.
Jesse, you know that the local leadership is desperate if they're trying somehow to link their own incompetence to Trump, that somehow this is his fault.
Yeah, federal agents are there to protect federal property, and they're not Trump's troopers. Juan, they're called Federal Protective Service. They're there to protect federal infrastructure. They're from the Department of Homeland Security. And the Hatfield Courthouse is a federal district courthouse in the city of Portland. And it's been vandalized. They've had windows broken. They've had a bulletproof door smashed through with hammers. These anarchists are trying to literally take over a federal building. So they're there to protect the federal building. And when these federal agents are there to protect federal property, they've had lasers pointed into their eyes and they've had commercial-grade fireworks shot at them. These anarchists have tried to hit people with vehicles, and when you come in and take some away in a van, that's actually a traditional law enforcement de-escalation tactic. Because when someone assaults a federal agent or commits a crime on federal property, they need to be arrested. Now, there's two ways of doing that. You could send in a bunch of federal agents into the middle of a crowd of 100 anarchists and try to arrest that individual. Or you could isolate them later when they're more alone and then make an arrest. That's how good policing is done. Now, it's also funny to hear the left complain about Trump sending federal agents anywhere after they sent federal agents into the Trump campaign. That's literally what happened. They were okay with that, but he doesn't like federal agents in Portland.
Oh, my God.
Yes, exactly. You can't do it to protect citizens, but you can go after Trump. So, Dagan, apparently it's arson and violence is a local problem, but police brutality is a national or global concern.
Right, exactly. Imagine being so unswervingly, steadfastly anti-Trump that you're pro-crime, that violence
yes.
and looting get a double thumbs up from the clowns on some of these
yes.
TV networks and their brethren running the states and cities in some of these areas. But it is an abomination to talk about enforcing the law and fighting crime. President Trump is actually standing up for his constitutional duty. It is to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And you know what these losers in places like, no disrespect, Emily, in Washington and Oregon are doing is they're turning their back on their constitutional duty because it's in the 10th Amendment that the states have the right to stand up for the safety of their citizens and the actual duty to do that. And it's perfectly okay if federal crimes are being committed, whether it's drug crimes or the feds can prove a racketeering enterprise, to go in with no invitation and no permission. But I push back on one thing, Greg. Those two are not Beavis and Butthead. That is an insult to Mike Judge.
That is true. I apologize to Mike Judge over that.
Let me just quickly throw this in there that I think local voters under that 10th Amendment have a right to hold local officials accountable if they think they're not doing a good job. And those local officials want to get reelected, so they are answering to their local constituents. And one other point, you know what? Police brutality against black people is a national problem. That's why it got national attention.
And so are riots, and so is looting, and so is violence, the wild spikes in violence.